Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This is going to be my second show regarding Cold War Paradise. And clearly, there's a lot of information you can discuss on this topic. It's a combination, for those who don't understand, it's a combination of being told that some of these changes that they want to bring in for our new world or a new order of things, that it has to go through pain and suffering, and clearly reintroducing the Cold War as a paradise or something that we should be embracing. And so it's coming in through like mainstream media, through children's programming, as we saw the movie of Barbie, and then combining that, showing at the same time simultaneously Oppenheimer, and then people are actually even coupling it together. So there's more to this because we also talked about Acapulco, which was a very popular TV show glamorizing, the beauty of the tropics, which is undeniable. I mean, I'm not going to say it isn't beautiful, but the undercurrent of the darkness that's there, and not necessarily in these nations, but the practices of those powers that be, the governments, and those that are playing chess with our reality and making decisions based on the ultimate end game for humanity, or whatever their plans are, a form of control systems. So we covered in the last show Acapulco, the discussion of Barbenheimer, the combination of Oppenheimer and Barbie, as well as the video game called Tropico, which also seems not very intimidating, more of a kind of a fun type of video game for kids to play, but having this beautiful, tropical looking background, and then you have this dictator. And essentially that sums up everything completely. So since then, there has been a very unusual storm that happened in Acapulco. And so it was Hurricane Otis. And the more I began to read about it, it was something that kind of crept up on the public. So for example, it was like a Cat 5, and then it went to this Cat 2, and then it jumped up into a Cat 5. A lot of the weather stations, most of the weather stations, as well as independent people that follow the weather, did not predict this. They weren't able to see this. And that's something that's really important to mention. It jumps very rapidly. Someone referred to it as a dry hurricane, as opposed to how hurricanes typically operate. They move through warm water, and I guess that energizes them to pull the water up and then have it, come down in a forceful way that causes a great deal of damage. And so there was also, many people are suspecting that the weather weapons are also being incorporated as a part of this, Cold War paradise, as we're seeing that they're literally creating problems. They're manipulating the weather, even by their own people. We don't really know exactly how this is operating. We sort of know. I mean, we do know, those in the upper levels that are trying to bring humanity to submission, or to reconfigure borders and coasts where others can come in and take over properties and so forth. But the other one is, of course, the Maui event that happened. It's another Cold War paradise. So another person brought this up. Well, since we're talking about Barbie, what about this? We are talking about the Cold War, although this is not necessarily, this is World War II, but it does go into more of the Cold War. So you see, here's Nicholas Barbie, who was a German officer from the SS and SD, who worked in Vichy, France during World War II. And they called him the Butcher of Lyon, which is also a word for lion, and having personally tortured prisoners, and they say primarily Jews and members of the French resistance, as the head of the Gestapo in Lyon. After the war, the United States intelligence services employed him for his anti-communist efforts and aided his escape to Bolivia. So there's South America, which is another paradise. And he advised the dictatorial regime on how to repress the opposition through torture. And in 1983, the United States apologized to France for the U.S. counterintelligence corps helping him escape to Bolivia. There's more information about him, but it also reminds me of this other movie that came out recently. So this movie is about Pinochet, and what they do is they turn it into kind of like, here it's interesting enough. There's the pink color again. I mean, you just can't make this up. I mean, there's clearly a theme. And they talk about him being a vampire or being able to live, abnormal amount of years. And so after living 250 years in the world, Augusto Pinochet, who is not dead, but an aged vampire, decides to die once and for all. So, he's in control, and here it is, another paradise. And so you see this information. And, in a few years past, I did interview someone that lived in that area and had some very, very interesting experiences as a child. He was originally from Chile. But, just like any dictator or leadership, people have interesting stories to tell about what happens and which causes people to question whether or not these individuals are actually human. I mean, the ability and things that people have to control others is quite outstanding. And so, but there's a deception, there's a promise of food or comforts, abundance, and all these things if you're going to do the right thing. Although that's starting to diminish as well. They're not promising things as they did. They're wanting us to accept less. But I think, in my opinion, they're kind of the same players over and over again. So jumping from Klaus Barbie down to who ended up in Bolivia, down to Pinochet. Now we're going to take a look at a very well-known entertainer by the name of Ed Sheeran. And in this video of Ed Sheeran, it's called Bad Habits. Let's take a look at Ed Sheeran. And we see him as a vampire. What color is he wearing? He's wearing bright pink. Let's take a look. So you can see his eyes, like as if he doesn't sleep much at night. He's wearing a pink suit, and he's got his long fingernails, and he's saying his bad habits lead to you, right? These are him wanting to stay up all night because he's essentially a vampire. And he's walking around with some kind of look like the undead in a way. I won't say they're quite zombies, but maybe some of them are. And they're all running around, and he's kind of guiding the way and doing a little dance, kind of like the Joker. I don't know if you're remembering the Joker. So that's another one that's very connected to this. And at some point, he actually sees his doppelganger. But you notice then, like the others start to die, he doesn't die from the sun. Not a typical vampire. Let's see if I can find that car scene where he almost gets hit by a car, but then his doppelganger comes out. But it looks almost like a sleeve. As we say, a sleeve, it's a body that sort of looks like ours. There it is right there. A body that looks like ours, but it is actually an artificial or a clone or something to that nature. So take a look at the Joker. The Joker is not necessarily wearing pink, but he's definitely wearing bright colors. And I guess it doesn't fully relate to what we're saying, but Ed Sheeran was clearly walking around the town as if he was the Joker. popular character. So you can see this sort of, it's sort of pink. It's not 100%, but the character has had that color at times, as well as some other bright, vibrant colors. But let's get back to it here again, making it comical, making it fun. Let's make a mockery of things. Let's have everything bright and pink, tropical looking, beautiful skies, and then something nefarious underneath it, getting us pretty much accustomed to all of it and what's going on. So as I was looking around, and I'll tell you the truth, I had no idea, but there was a person that actually wrote the book Cold War Paradise, and I had never heard of it, never seen it. I literally heard it. And this is something that they must have been trying to tell me about this man by the name of Atalia Shragai. I'm not really sure how to pronounce his name correctly. So yeah, this is an actual thing. It was called Project Muse, or this is what they called it here. It could be that's the name of the company, but it seems to be fitting. Here is the synopsis. In the wake of the Cold War, a diverse group of U.S. immigrants flocked to Costa Rica, distancing themselves from the undesirable U.S. policies at home and abroad. Enchanted with Costa Rica's natural beauty, the paradise, lured by a prospect of cheap land, these expatriates, former government employees, businessmen and privileged bourgeois, dissident Quakers and self-seeking hippies, farmers and ecologists, sought a new life in a country that was often dubbed the Switzerland of Central America. Cold War Paradise is a social and cultural history of this little studied immigration flow based on extensive oral histories of these immigrants in their diverse writings ranging from women's club cookbooks to personal letters. Atalia Shragai examines the motivations of immigration, patterns of movement, settlements, and processes of identity making among the U.S. Americans in Costa Rica from post-war World War II to the late 1970s, exploring such diverse themes as gender, nature, and material culture. These studies provide a fresh perspective on inter-American relations from the point of view of ordinary U.S. immigrants and settlers. Shragai traces the formation and evolution of the wide range of identifications among U.S. expats in the varied ways they reconstructed and represented their individual and collective histories within the broader scheme of the U.S. presence in Cold War Central America. It sounds interesting, doesn't it? But when we see the flood of people coming over and crossing the border, the Americans did that first. They started flooding down. I won't say that they did it first. It's been going back and forth for many years because of migrant workers and different types of regimes that had oppressed people and people wanting to get away. So it's a part of the Americas are part of the United States and vice versa, as so many Americans, U.S. Americans, have traveled to South America for various reasons, which is why they're bringing in divide and conquer, to create a division and a distaste for one another, creating the oppression or the anger of the South Americans because of maybe the wealth or the haves and the have-nots, and all along this is a game that's being played one against another, trying to create this whether it's a cleansing or some other heavy oppression. And not to mention that many of the older population of those that are in need in the United States are not getting what they deserve because of these imbalances that is done intentionally to create. their Cold War paradise. They want to keep reminding Americans, you have everything that you need. You should be grateful for what little that you have. As many people don't have homes. They want people to be grateful for that while they live in their sprawling multi-room homes. They don't want people to drive. They don't want people to use fossil fuels, but then they take their private jets. There's a lot of contradictions. It's Cold War paradise. The last thing that I'm going to bring up here is Black Ops Cold War, in which I've talked about with Peter the Insider, on my show multiple times. And for those of you who hadn't seen the first version of this, you really should take a look at the information that I brought in from Cold War Paradise the first time around. But this also, including this information, take a look at some of the old shows that we did regarding the Call of Duty Black Ops and the Cold War, and some of the things that they came right out and told us that they wanted to do to humanity, especially to the Western world, and to take over our children, to teach them what they want them to learn, to teach them their philosophies, to have less, to struggle, whatever oppression that they thought that they had, they want to impose that on the American people and for all people altogether. There's a lack of compassion, humanity. I don't believe that they're normal. I don't believe that they're normal as we understand to be human. While looking at one of the videos to promote this game, they used a song by New Order called Blue Monday. And these are the lyrics. How does it feel to treat me like you do when you've laid your hands upon me and told me who you are? I thought I was mistaken. I thought I heard your words. Tell me, how do you feel? Tell me, how do I feel? Those who came before me lived through their vocations from past into completion. They've turned away no more. I still find it so hard to say that I need to say, but I'm quite sure that you'll tell me just how should I feel. I see a ship in the harbor. I can and shall obey, but it wasn't for your misfortune. I'd be a heavenly person today. I thought I was mistaken. I thought I heard you speak. Tell me, how do I feel? I thought I told you to leave me while I walked down the beach. Tell me, how do I feel when your heart grows cold? So maybe this is a romantic song, but it also seems applicable to what we're talking about today. Thank you for listening, everyone.